Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happenstance into this Truth Bomb Riff. My name is Patrick Lovell, the producer, and it is Saturday, February 22nd, 2025, at approximately noon my time. And I got to tell you, man, I'm in totally the vortex. I am in the zeitgeist. I am in the centrifuge of all that is swirling around me and has been for a long time. And more of you are beginning to see it. But I want to start with this first, and I want to try to make this as short as possible. Famous last words, but I really want to try to get this down to like 15 minutes max, maybe 10. In fact, I'm going to set my alarm right now, um, so that I can do, I don't know, let's just say 15 minutes. Yep, we'll start 15 minutes starting now, and we'll see if I can deliver what it is that I'm trying to deliver in that amount of time. I got to keep these short because I know you're busy while the world is burning and about to devastate us all. All right, look, this morning I wake up to the New York Times, which I normally do, and right there on the front page in the op-ed section is a article that whose headline, well, it has two things, right? It has the headline and it has the picture, and the picture is of Elon Musk with a chainsaw, and the headline says, "Is Elon Musk basically taking a page out of Jack Welch's formula?" It was Jack Welch. Why is Elon Musk standing on the front page of the New York Times and in front of the world with a chainsaw that he did the other day? That obviously I think was part of CPAC, right? The conservative PAC conference. And I was like, when I first saw it a couple of days ago, I was like, ah, ha, ha, ha. Elon has been watching my work, just like I know, for example, Steve Bannon was watching our work. And I may as well just address that now that I brought that up. So, when the insurrection happened, the biggest proclamation, particularly as it came through on Fox, was the big lie. Now, shortly before that, and I believe it was September of 2020, we had released my work, The Con. And my brilliant distributor, Abram Arama, came up with this incredible poster design where it has a man walking, in a suit, kind of a faceless man walking in a suit with a briefcase, and the tagline says, "We were all sold a lie." And then the caption above reads something, "This true story of the largest criminal conspiracy in the history of the world," which it was. And we didn't come out with huge fanfare nor a ginormous PR sort of initiative, even though we had one of the best public relations company in New York that has worked on some of the most famous films in the history of independent film. And they had a hard time getting our stuff out there because of everything that I've been telling you ever since. But one person was paying attention, and that was Steve Bannon. And I knew that right away because the insurrection happened and it started being dramatized and marketed as the big lie, which ultimately became Fox's incarnation of everything that led to Dominion Energy Booth suing Rupert Murdoch and Fox Corp for and winning in a settlement of defamation, 785 million dollars, I believe, where Papa Murdoch had admitted that Fox's business model is to lie. And I've laid down all the intrinsic numbers and why that works and everything else. But just plug that away for a moment, okay? And now fast forward to 2025, and you've got Elon Musk in front of CPAC doing this dog and pony show with this chainsaw. And I'm like, I wonder where Elon got that information or the idea. Now, whether or not Elon saw the con and actually it occurred to him that this is what he's going to do is not something I can prove. I could speculate. I think he has. And there's a lot of other reasons why I think Elon is well aware of who I am. But further to that, in episode 4 of The Con, which you can find for free at www.thecon.tv, that we had to make for free because we spent millions of dollars to deliver the $71 trillion truth that we couldn't get to market because all the American people buy our lies. Quite frankly, because the system will only offer lies to make sure that you don't know what it is that I'm telling you that leads us to understand all things Elon Musk with the chainsaw. which is a reenactment of what we show you took place in episode 3 of The Con, where a guy that we called Chainsaw Gillerin did the exact same thing in the late 80s to basically do the same thing to regulation at that time. That was part of what we revealed to you was the time period of deregulation, desupervision, and decriminalization that would create all that we're in the midst of. All that would help fuel, for example, Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation and the notion of the Unitarian presidency and all the billionaires that are involved with this that coincide with the other elements that I've got to lay out shortly. But the fact that this wound up on the front page of the New York Times, particularly this week, because if you look at my uh, YouTube page at Patrick Lovell Truth Bombs The Con, where I think we're up to like 557 truth bombs, 2 of the last 4 that I've done involved some of the heavies in terms of experts in this arena that start with none other than June Carbone and William K. Black. And then yesterday I rolled out one. Is it yesterday? Because it's Friday. I think I did it on Thursday. Yeah, I did it on Thursday, where I recorded with, among others, David K. Johnson, the foremost expert on all things Donald Trump, and then Paul Pelletier, the former director of white collar investigations and prosecutions at the Department of Justice, as well as Mark Dan, former Attorney General of Ohio, that got the only racketeering conviction, RICO conviction of this story that proves everything that I'm saying, that unfortunately the FBI didn't do to the financial industry that is at the center of all of this mayhem. So June Carbone had laid out exactly why all things Doge are just step and repeat of what Jack Welch had done, which her work had revealed a very long time ago, and how it did it. And then all of a sudden it shows up on the front page of the New York Times. And I'm thinking to myself, boy, I wonder if the Times had actually been paying attention to us. Now, lo and behold, I look at who wrote the article, and it turns out to be William D. Cohen. I know William D. Cohen very well. William D. Cohen is featured prominently in my work, The Con. And by the way, I love Bill, and there's a lot to our relationship, and he's really a powerhouse journalist that has access to the most powerful and richest CEOs in our economy. And that's what his role has been for a very long time. And there's more to the story than that. But what I'm trying to express to you is that, and I'm not trying, I'm telling you, that the likes of Steve Bannon through Elon Musk have always been paying attention to the work that I am trying to get you to understand, because they're using it for themselves in the greatest hijacking of a democracy in the history of the world that far exceeds anything that Shakespeare had ever imagined. And Shakespeare understood psychology, the psychology of power, pretty well. But yeah, this is absolutely insane. And so, as I've been commenting on X, for those of you who follow me on X, the magnitude of what is being revealed, I believe, through Rachel Maddow really underscores most of it anyway. Because Rachel Maddow has literally been losing her mind, and she's projecting kind of this false sense of confidence. It almost feels like she might be like a minister of propaganda, maybe in, I don't know, Vietnam, saying all is well right before the night of the Tet Offensive. Even though, for those paying attention, obviously the Tet Offensive has already happened by way of Vladimir Putin, the non-communist mob director of the white Christo-fascist nationalist movement that is undergirded by fossil fuel, whereas, solidarity lies with the theocracy of Saudi Arabia, among others, that have rug pulled the entirety of the United States and our separation of powers in 248-year history of the greatest democracy that's ever lived. And of course, we were warned it's power to the people if they can keep it, because it was always an experiment in order to form a more perfect union, because of psychology of power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And here we are again in the midst of what's been going on in the world for literally a millennium. But I wanted to address, all things considered, given that, something that's incredibly important, and I hope that you'll take to heart given everything that we're doing. So what I've proposed to anybody who can get their heads around this and anyone who can share this and get on board and get involved with what we're doing is you have to understand four questions to fully radiate and understand what it is that I'm revealing, that if we all come together, we will have the power to turn the tables on this madness. But you've got to understand who I am. You got to understand who Patrick Lovell, the producer, is. You've got to understand what my work reveals, the con, that you can find at www, one extra W, dot thecon.tv. And again, I reiterate, it's free. It's the work that cost us millions that delivered for the American people with the sum total of the $90 billion apparatus of federal agencies that are tasked to make sure none of this could ever possibly happen, failed because of corruption. And that goes for the billions of dollars and tens of thousands of employees that come with it, not just in budget, but also in their sort of, I don't know, parallel in media. The exact same thing happened. And that's why I ended up having to make the con, because I'm not an idiot. Because I know when someone's pissing on my head telling me it's rain. And I started pulling the thread and I figured out the emperor's new clothes. And I could see the forest for the trees, of which I am revealing to you. And that's how you get there, is you got to first understand the con. Now, keep in mind, by the way, that the con, the first 5 episodes of the con, was intent to create season 2 of the con that I could never get off the ground because I got quashed by the Borg of corruption, led by none other than, and I'm absolutely certain of this initially, BlackRock, the most powerful company in the world that is basically the United States of America. And there's a reason to that methodology that I'm not going to go into in this truth bomb. But again, if you know who I am as the producer, if you know what the con is at the blueprint, and then you have to wrap your head around Federal Reserve Act 13.3, which I post all over the place. But if you go to www.thecleannewdeal.org and you look in the upper heading for white papers and you scroll to Federal Reserve Act 13.3, it will lay out how all of this stuff came to be, which reveals the world's largest racketeering fraud in the history of mankind that led to tens of trillions of dollars being given to the criminal apparatus, which was our financial system, and all that goes with it. And it was all done illegally. And then that gets us to the pathway forward, which is the Clean New Deal, which you can look at at www.thecleannewdeal.org. And we're going to update that because we had created this before the end of the election, but now there's updates that we have to, insert and kind of change some of the dialogue. But all of the information is the same, as well as the trajectory of where we need to get to and the the pathway to being able to create an enlightened civil rights revolution that is going to rip the power back, turn the tables on this absolute demented corruption to redeem the dream. But if tens of millions of you get it. Now, further to that, look, I'm going to do this as an appeal because I want you to fill in the blanks and I want you to understand what this all means by way of we have to get your buy-in, your literal buy-in. Okay. Now, when I was a kid, for example, I loved Kiss. I loved skateboarding. I loved rock and roll. I loved Farrah Fawcett, for example. And I remember buying all of their albums and their 8-track tapes, if you can remember those days, posters, skateboard products, whatever, because I was all in. What those elements refracted to me was things that that expressed who I was. I didn't expect to get that for free. No, I bought in and I wanted to be a part of Kiss Army, which I did. And I actually subscribed to Kiss Army and I was one of those guys. And, it's just the nature of what our economy and our world is. It's capitalism, but it's free markets and it's those things. And I've always been like, Jesus, I loved everything from David Bowie, let's say, to, I don't know, Metallica. I could go on and on and on. The Clash, it doesn't. I never expected to get their work for free. I bought their work. I listened to their work. I bought in because I was all in, and it shaped my mind. It shaped my worldview. It shaped who I hung out with. It shaped my culture, for example. Okay? And that's what we have to do with this Clean New Deal. So there's twofold. There's two ingredients to this thing that I want you to wrap your head around. Now, first, we created a merchandise page that we've been getting out there, and some people have responded on my threads that they're like, "Oh, you're a snake oil salesman. You're just a liar like Trump is." No, I'm not a liar like Trump is. Otherwise, I'd be wearing a MAGA hat. And how about all those MAGAs who are out there professing their loyalty and allegiance to a movement through their buy-in and their coffee mugs and everything else? Well, yeah, that's the deal. And so we provided all of these amazing products of what the Clean New Deal is, whether it's tote bags, whether it's backpacks, whether it's stickers, whether it's cases for your cell phone, whether it's shirts, and we've got amazing shirts and hats, all of which proclaim the ultimate fuck you to MAGA. And quite frankly, the ultimate fuck you to corruption. And I'm going to go on for 5 more minutes. And we believe that if millions of you purchased these items, you would be able to help manifest growing a movement, the only movement that is possible to turn the tables on this corruption before it's too late. And the fascism that's come down the pike and everything that we're already seeing, it's basically too late, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't think we're ever going to have another free and fair election again unless we force it somehow, which might be a bloody revolution. But before we get there, and I will tell you that given the insurrection, given SCOTUS putting Trump above the president, knighting him a king, basically, etch a sketching the history of the United States and nobody actually doing anything about it and expecting the likes of Rachel Maddow and the hens of MSNBC crowing about it night in and night out hasn't created, the remedy requisite the corruption. It just hasn't. And the reason it hasn't is manyfold. One is that the Democrats have been playing by the rules of the corrupt the whole time. People that we like Bernie Sanders, and I do like Bernie Sanders, but I know what Bernie Sanders has done and what he hasn't done. Same with Elizabeth Warren. I know what AOC is capable of, and I know what AOC doesn't know. AOC was out there publicly 6 months ago saying RICO isn't a crime. And yes, I'm aware of the predicate acts of all of the elements of what create the criminal aspects of what RICO is an abbreviation of, but you can convict people under RICO statutes, by the way, which makes it the mother of all crimes because it's organized crime, you morons. For those of you who try to take that sort of nuanced position, which is to defend AOC. No, she's a young girl that doesn't know what the hell's going on. Do I think she's talented? Do I think her heart might be in the right place? Do I know what she did with the whole she got rid of all of the people that were on the right side in her group to basically play ball with Nancy Pelosi. And then she's, somebody who gets a lot of attention in media because she goes to like art galleries for the, very high heeled set. And she wears, tax the rich on the back of her dress. I mean, come on. It's just freaking a show. She doesn't really know how things work. And I've tried to get her to understand what the con is and everything else, but she didn't. And yeah, well, further to that, and Rachel Maddow the whole time, again, I've had particularly women want to ridicule me because they're saying, ridicule me from a standpoint that they don't have any idea who I am. They think I'm trying to be a snake oil salesman that is just trying to exploit an opportunity because I'm saying anti-MAGA, and they just kind of discount it. And it's like, oh my God, you're shitting on tens of millions of Americans that got set up and raped and roofied, particularly the person who is the personification of it all, a woman by the name of Addie Polk, a 91-year-old African-American woman who was the embodiment of the American dream turned nightmare because she had to commit suicide instead of go homeless because she was having her house stolen that she owned and lived in for 4 decades right out from underneath her that nobody would help. And here I come years later, discover her story and realize that she is this miraculous entry point to discovering the only RICO conviction in the history of this mammoth, giant global racketeering ring that I'm revealing to you. And there's people who know nothing that want to see what I'm saying about, providing merchandise to counter MAGA. And they're like, I'm a snake oil salesman. When I've provided them the revelation that destroyed millions, of which they presumably support. That's part of the ignorance that exists in this country. Not to mention many people who want to think that Rachel Maddow hangs the moon. I always gives credit to Rachel where she deserves it. She is incredible at taking on Trump day in and day out, day out. She did magnificent work with Ultra. She is smart. She's got a lot of resources, but she did not reveal to you what I am revealing to you, which makes it all possible. Both parties are in on the corruption, and they played by the corruption's rules for far too long. And now our democracy has been demolished. There is no remedy within Congress. I mean, we've seen the Democrats stay up all night, every night, trying to get resolutions to prevent this or that. But meanwhile, what have we seen? We've seen the appointments of Pete Hegseth, of Kash Patel, of Kristi Noem, of Tulsi Gabbard, of need I go on, right? Bobby Kennedy. They haven't stopped any of this stuff because they don't have the votes, because it was a railroad victory for the Republicans in the 2020 election, and elections have consequences. They own both chambers of Congress, and they own the Supreme Court, and they own the presidency. And now they're doing this even though, yes, it's all against the law, but who's going to stop them when the law has had, basically they're all in on the corruption. And that's what I'm revealing to you. Didn't just happen with the second election of Donald Trump, which of course we all know Elon Musk is who's calling the shots, which is further absolutely ridiculous in context to everything that we're seeing with Vladimir Putin and Saudi and all the rest of it. Oh my God, the sabotage that the Beastie Boys gave us back in the 90s doesn't even come close to what we're in the midst of here. But it was all possible because of all of the information that I'm revealing to you, because the law died years ago because of what I'm revealing to you. And you've got to understand the construct here. And Rachel Maddow is the one who's been laying it out the whole time, for example, that there was 91 indictments of Donald Trump that basically said that he defrauded the United States using deceptive acts and practices and racketeering and falsification of business records and fraudulent signatures in the case of trying to steal the Electoral College. And then they got it this time around with all of the other suppression of votes. And who knows what Vladimir Putin and Elon Musk were able to pull off, because we'll never get there because of, Biden was ultimately Neville Chamberlain. He had the power of what the Supreme Court said, and he stood down. And same with, quite frankly, Kamala Harris, who wanted to etch a sketch the last 15 years to make sure that we, erase this, because they're all hiding that it was during the Obama presidency that we lifted the veil of, we maneuvered to allow the Federal Reserve to backdoor Congress to make sure that we floated financial markets where we provided tens of trillions of dollars illegally to the financial racketeers that destroyed the world. And it never ended. And it, by the way, it incorporated the judiciary of the United States. Yeah, my friends, everything I just laid out to you in the 91 indictments, that the sum total of our government, our federal government, could not put away Donald Trump, who's been breaking the law for decades. They couldn't take down one guy. And what I'm giving you is the entire discovery and the mechanisms that should have convicted, literally on par with tens of thousands of people in the financial industry across the board that committed tens of millions of felonies. And then judiciary did the exact same thing, by the way. Yeah, that's been going on for 14 years to the tune of $71 trillion. Does it make sense that the billionaires have absolute control, that they're above the law, that they're above market forces, that they can roofie and gang rape the weakest out there? And then they can go and they can cut the jobs of the federal works programs or budgeting for the most vulnerable, not only in the United States, but around the world. Yeah, that's power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. They're just simply doing what P. Diddy had been doing in the shadows the whole time, gang raping the American dream in all of its facets. And the only way you can remedy that is the law. But the law is now under the thumb of the corrupt completely. We had a purge at the FBI. We have a purge as of last night at the Pentagon. They pulled this off. And Rachel Maddow is out there going, well, yeah, there's what am I trying to say? There are all of these elements that are suggesting that Trump is more unpopular than ever before. Oh yeah, like that's going to change anything. The only Democrat that I've seen so far that has any chops that has made me inspired to think that, yeah, he's got the goods to be able to do what he's got to do, but unfortunately, he's handcuffed by his colleagues. That's Eric Swalwell. And what he said yesterday was the truth. He said the government is not, we're not getting close to a constitutional crisis. We're in one, and that the government is dead. At least the government of and for the people, of, for, and by the people. Do you not understand what's going on? We're going to have to galvanize tens of millions of people equipped with the truth that understand this thing soup to nuts is what, and that's what I revealed to you in the con and also in the cleannewdeal.org. And all I'm asking you to do is consider, if you can, to purchase a hat, a shirt, a sticker, to get the word out there. And also, yeah, we got to fundraise to try to put a lot of this stuff together. And if you just want to do a direct donation, I don't know why I couldn't think of that. We have a spot on our website that you can do that. And I'm asking everybody who sees this to consider contributing $13 to the Clean New Deal. And the reason being is a lot. But quite frankly, the numbers are extraordinary if you think about it, because what we've shown was that there was at least 10 million filed foreclosures. I know the number was closer to 16 million. That incorporates based on the mean average 3-person per household. So 50 million people were directly impacted by this. And I look at this, as more of a global scenario that took out countries. I mean, we're talking at least 150 million people were directly shattered by the 2008 great financial crisis that created the carnage in the streets of homelessness and divorces and suicide and so forth. This has been the last 14 years of our downward descent that's allowed the billionaires to completely create a hostile takeover of what was remaining of our democracy, which we never had. I've always said that we're a corporate fascist state undergirded by a criminal syndicate that uses the full faith and credit of the United States to fuel the mafiocracy that is now fueling fascism. And by the way, that's the way it's always been. That's just exactly how it works. That's the fall of the Roman Empire. That's Nazi Germany and Mussolini, yada, yada, yada. It goes on and on. It could be tyranny. It could be the Politburo. All systems of central control follow the same pattern. And there is no way that I think we're going to have free and fair elections. And there's no way that the Democrats, the way they work now, because they work for the billionaires as well, are going to tell you the truth that I am. And they're not going to give you the pathway out of it, which is the Clean New Deal. Although President Biden said on his way out that we've got to basically do what I'm telling you. He said we got to reorient to what this country proved that we could do, from trust busting and Teddy Roosevelt all the way through the New Deal with Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And that's what the Clean New Deal is. And I've laid out there what the precepts of the Clean New Deal are, and I think you really need to discover it yourself. But I want to get back to the notion of, if you want to make a direct donation, please donate $13. Because honestly, if we could get 13 million people, of which is what, less than 10%, I think it's like 7%. If 13 million people donated $13, we'd raise $169 million. Yeah, by the way, that would be right up there with what Bernie Sanders got, because he picked up all of the pieces, or I should say the momentum of Occupy Wall Street. And then what did Bernie do after he said that Wall Street's business model is fraud? He basically decided to move on and not become a threat because he played by the corrupt's rules. And now he's on the stump all over the place saying the same thing he did 14 years ago. This is what I'm trying to tell you guys, that the Democrats do not have the will. They do not have they don't have the commitment to truth, because then they've got to prove that they're the ones who let all of this stuff happen to float markets that they were in on the corruption, which they've been getting paid by through the DNC, which of course takes its orders from the billionaires as well. We either have to completely cleanse the Democratic Party of this, or we got to start a whole new party. But the only way we're going to get there is when we create the civil rights movement, which is the Clean New Deal. And if you donate $13 or you buy the Clean New Deal, and if you just want to stick it to MAGA, they're going to be like, once they understand that this is completely anti-MAGA, that this is anti-Trump and anti-Elon, they're not going to like it. And that's going to put a smile on your face. And so we've got the product all over the place. And yeah, I hate to say it, but Capitalism is the answer. It's your buy-in. It is honestly your buy-in. And that's what the Supreme Court said back in the day of Citizens United. Yeah, money is speech. If you don't have skin in the game, you can't play the game. And this is your skin in the game. But I want to remind you all that our system is not capitalism anymore. It hasn't been since what I'm revealing to you because of what I said previously. It's literally socialism for the billionaire class, the criminal class, because they can loot with impunity the full faith and credit of the United States, which is what's created all of this madness and what I'm trying to get you all to understand so that we can actually cut their funding off, turn the tables, and then get our government up for and by the people back to where the integrity of law rules supreme, which is the American dream. If you, me, and everyone you see who isn't a Nazi, who believes in liberty and sustainability and integrity and dignity, if we come together and we deliver unity for the Clean New Deal, that'll be our destiny to purge the misery of tyranny to create the renaissance of possibility. Because is there a better way to spend $71 trillion than on about 300,000 people to completely gut us and control us? That is completely antithetical to every single triumph and victory that the United States has had since the revolution. I don't know how it is that possible that most of you don't understand this stuff. It's like the critical thinking skills and the understanding and education of our country and the overwhelming madness of social media has gotten to the point that millions have become lobotomized zombies. They're the proverbial frog boiling in the water that, it was warm and now they turned up the water. Or, they're the frog that sees the scorpion and the scorpion says, hey, will you give me a lift across the river? And the frog says, no, because you're a scorpion and you can sting me and we'll drown. And the scorpion says, no, I wouldn't do that because I drown too. So the good-natured frog says, sure, why not? I'll take a risk. And he goes, and halfway through, the swim, he gets stung by the scorpion and they both drown. And on the way down, the frog says, why'd you do that? And the scorpion says, because I'm a frog. Because I'm a scorpion. I am truth. Sorry. I'm the deliverer of truth. The truth is our savior. I'm just the deliverer. And when you live in light, you live in truth. When you lie, you are depraved. When you have the truth, you're bulletproof. When you lie, inside you die. Stop lying. Stop buying lies. Become a nuclear reaction vector to the big bang of truth that I'm delivering. And then we can force light into the depravity and the darkness of the sickness of corruption and liars in every single direction. And before you have to pick up a musket, how about pick up your credit card and donate $13 so that we can get organized and get millions of us together, or just buy products so you can go out in the streets yourself or to school or to a game or wherever to proclaim the Clean New Deal, because that's what it's going to take to get our freedom and our democracy and the law back. It is seriously the only way. And you've got to really think of it as what we put on my first documentary film that proclaims this. And I'll put the link in the description down below that shows what our poster was then. It was Lady Liberty with her torch of freedom leading the way. But the caption says, America for sale. That's what this is all about. We've all sold out. Our power has sold out completely. Absolute corruption corrupts absolutely. When a group of men discover plunder, they create a legal code to authorize it and a moral code to glorify it. Are you a patriot? Do you believe in the United States? Do you believe in freedom and liberty and justice for all? Do you believe in the Constitution? Do you believe in separation of powers? Do you believe that the only way this thing can work? Prove it. Buy in. Onwards and upwards.